On the day that your baby is born, that's the same day that a mother or a father, whoever is born. That's your first day doing that.
Even if you're first day of your job.
Exactly.
Your new job.
And you have no one can tell you how to do it. You just have to figure it out.
Actually accepting and being mindful of and being able to acknowledge that these early days are going to be maybe some beautiful moments where you do have those love heart eyes, but also some really, really stressful moments where you might think you've ruined your life.
Ngala acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional custodians of Australia and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging in the spirit of reconciliation. We acknowledge the importance of children being raised with connection to culture, community and family.
So I'm Jen. I job share with you on the parenting line as a senior parenting line practitioner. My background is in midwifery and registered nursing. And I have a particular interest in infant and perinatal mental health, which is my passion. Mum of 3 who are much bigger than the babies we're going to be talking about, but I can really remember what it was like in those early days. So
I bet. Yeah. It's not something you always forget.
No.
Cool. I'm Hannah. I am an occupational therapist and I job share with you, Jen, on the Ngala parenting line as one of the senior parenting practitioners. And I am a mum of 2. I've got a 4-year-old, almost 5-year-old and an almost 2-year-old.
Parenting line is we operate 365 days a year. You can call us anytime. Between 8 and 8, you'll get to speak to someone. We will speak to you about anything. There's no question that's too big or too small. You can call if you're pregnant. You can call if you have a 17-year-old, so it's 0 to 18. Yeah. And we will try our very best to point you in the right direction if we can't help you. And sometimes that is what happens. We just can navigate you to where you need to go.
Yeah, I always joke with people that we might take a phone call and it'll be a parent of a 4-month-old and then the next phone call is a parent of a 14-year-old. So it's like my 4-month-old isn't sleeping and my 14-year-old is vaping. Yeah. And we sort of go, whoo, whoo, the full spectrum of parenting. So It's a great service for that reason.
It is, and it keeps you on your toes.
And it's based in Western Australia, we should note as well.
Yeah.
But if you're elsewhere in Australia, there are equivalent parenting line helplines that are available to you in other states.
So if you call the parenting line, you will get to chat to an array of different practitioners. So we do have lactation consultants, we do have child health nurses, we've got perinatal and infant mental health trained staff as well. We've got you, the OT, our one and only.
We would like to have some more.
We would. And registered nurses as well with a background in paediatrics. So Hannah, this is episode 1.
Yes, it is.
Yes. And so this episode really is about expectations versus reality of jumping into parenthood and bringing home a new baby and what that actually is like. I think it's one of those things that you actually can't understand what it's like until you've done it, even though you can prepare yourself so much for it and you can read every book and you can watch every Instagram reel and follow every, person on Instagram that aligns with your values. And then you bring home this human that is their own human and comes with their own temperament. And you can't prepare yourself for that.
Absolutely. I have a really close friend and I remember after I had my firstborn, I said, no one told me it was going to be like this. And she said, actually, lots of people did. You just couldn't hear it. You couldn't absorb it until you're actually experiencing it yourself.
That's so true.
Yeah.
We talk about when you're pregnant, I think we talk about a lot about the birth and you really are focused on that birth. And mentally, your brain can't comprehend anything after it because it is such a big physical, turmoil your body goes through, this huge ordeal, and you have to prepare yourself for that first and foremost.
And do you think that's protective a little bit as well, like psychologically protective?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we'd have to say so because otherwise why? So we know that does happen. As a midwife, I know that I will have chatted to mums and spoken to them multiple times about certain things that are going to happen after the birth. And they'll come back to you afterwards and say, oh, but no one ever told me this, but I know that I did. And so that's just, it's the brain. It's what it does. And
compartmentalising a little bit.
Absolutely.
What's to come. Okay. And there's a lot.
There is. So I think one of the important things that we like to talk to people about is having a plan in place for after baby's born and thinking about what that might look like for you and what is going to feel safe for you in terms of protecting your space and protecting your child and what you're comfortable with. And I think a lot of people will have a birth plan and they will plan that and think, yep, this is what I want for my birth. But I really encourage people to think about having some safe space after baby's born and what that looks like for you. And it will be different for every family.
So like a postpartum plan.
Yeah.
To go alongside at the sort of the back page of your birth plan
for
when you head home. And I suppose, as you said, that could look different for so many different families. Like what support feels like for you personally could be very, very different. And also what's available to you might be different. If you've got family or if you've got a FIFO partner, if you're an expat, there's lots of elements that come into that. And we often on the parenting line have those conversations with families, don't we?
So, that postpartum plan. And, like you mentioned, it's going to look different for everyone. And it will depend on relationships in your life as well. So it's worth thinking about the people that you would like around you and having conversations early on about that, not leaving it until baby's here, you've just given birth or your partner's just given birth and emotions are running high, you're exhausted, and then having to have difficult conversations that might, be about not coming over until you've had a whooping cough vaccination.
Absolutely.
These are, small things that can actually be big things once baby's born.
So there are actual kind of concrete practical things that we might think about. So sometimes it's helpful to think about those things like, are we asking family members to have their whooping cough or their flu shot vaccinations before coming and visiting? Are we going to ask people to use hand sanitizer or wash their hands before they touch the baby?
And face masks.
Yeah, face masks. Everyone is a little bit different, and you might feel okay with certain things, or you might say, actually, I want to, before that baby has their first lot of immunisations, I want everyone to be quite hypervigilant. And having that stance ready in yourself so you know what you want, communicating that with your partner so you're on the same page. And then you might share that with family beforehand, or your partner might translate that message across postpartum when people come to visit. What are some other things that we could mention in that sort of postpartum period?
I think if you birth in a hospital, having a really boundaries around when people visit, who visits, and not feeling guilty if you choose to protect that space with your little family, because that's what's the most important, is that you feel safe and that you feel like your baby's safe. And sometimes having lots of people come to the hospital and visit, and you're trying to, feed baby, you're learning all these things for the first time. It's too overwhelming to try and be worrying about visitors or people who are coming. Having said that, you might have a very, very close relationship with a parent or a friend or a sister, and you want them there. And so having that conversation as well, saying, I actually need you to come in and support me through this, that's okay too. Mm-hmm. And there's no right and wrong. It's just about what works for you. And being prepared and knowing that, having the conversations early on.
And thank God for hospitals and visiting hours, because they will kick you out, I suppose.
Yeah. And if you are in a hospital, using the staff as your
baddies.
Yeah, they can be the baddies. Yeah. They can be like, oh, not today, or, put a sign on your door so that, if people do show up unexpectedly.
Mum's sleeping.
That's right. And they can do the turning away. Yeah. That's what those people are there for.
And partners, I think a great role in that stage is being that advocate, being that sort of, sometimes you have to be that little bit of a bad cop if you're having to put those boundaries in place, and reminding and speaking up, being that voice. Because again, for that person that's given birth, for that mother that's given birth, you're so overwhelmed. You've just gone through a huge life event, transformational event, physically exhausted, that these things might be important to you, but you might not actually have the capacity to communicate them. And so that's where we want our partners to be good advocates.
Absolutely.
Yeah. For the new family, for this new little family. It's a first opportunity to do that.
And, you know, getting organised beforehand, and if you know that you don't want people visiting unless they've had their flu or their whooping cough vaccine, send out a text message before the baby's born. Then it's not a surprise to anyone, and you don't have to have those conversations face-to-face if you feel like that is going to be a tricky conversation. That's okay to send a text message.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, or not. I think about when I had my babies, you get inundated with text messages and you know, how are things going? You know, tell us the birth story. And I think there's also a point where you can go, I don't have capacity to answer all of this. And I actually had a friend whose partner sent out sort of a dump text to all of her girlfriends and said, she just needs a bit of time. She'll get back to you when she can. And I think that's also a great approach. And if the friend who's receiving that is offended, well, that's their prerogative.
No, and that tells you everything that you need to know. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
But it is hard. If you're a person who struggles with those boundaries, it is hard because a lot of times family members, friends feel like they have a right to your space and to your child.
Particularly in this day and age as well, you know, the pressure perhaps to communicate over socials as well. Yeah, and all of that. So knowing what's important to you, what you want to do, and also then knowing, you know, what you can kind of leave behind.
And that's really what it's about, is what your values are as a parent and as a family. And that looks different again for every family. But if you can know if you can know where you're comfortable before the baby's there, then you'll know what you need to put in place.
Yeah. I like that, Jen.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about instinct.
What a word.
What a word. We hear it a lot, don't we? Like mum instincts, parenting instincts, intuitive parenting. What is it? Did you have it?
No. Tell me more about this. I remember after my oldest son was born, he's now 19, so this was a long time ago, and I remember the day I left hospital, they gave me him, and I remember thinking, hang on a sec, what? You expect me to take this baby home and look after him? Absolutely not. Like, I had no idea what I was doing, no instincts whatsoever. And it makes you feel really uncomfortable because you think, hang on, I'm wrong here. I should know what to do. My baby, this is my baby. Where's all this, you know, immediate instincts that are meant to be born once the mother's born?
What about if you don't even feel like it's your baby?
Yeah.
I know when my first child was born, I knew I had to take care of him. I wanted to be really good at that. I'm a type A personality, you know, so I was going to do a really good job at the doing of being a mum. But I was definitely waiting for his mum to come and claim him. I didn't necessarily claim myself as a mother straight away, and I didn't claim my baby as mine straight away. I looked after him. I did all the practical things, but in terms of that becoming, that transformational element of identifying as in the role of mother, it took a little while for me. So I think, that word instincts that we hear, motherly instincts, you know, if we can kind of file that away a little bit and say maybe what we need to talk a little bit more about is parental competence and what that means and how we develop that, because it's a learnt skill, isn't it?
Absolutely. Giving space for learning.
Yeah.
Because on the day that your baby is born, that's the same day that a mother or a father, you know, whoever is born. That's your first day doing that.
Even if you're first day of your job.
Exactly.
Your new job.
And you have no one can tell you how to do it. You just have to figure it out.
Yeah. And how do we figure it out?
For me, the best way to figure it out is by looking at your baby and using them as your manual, knowing your values, again, around what you value as a parent, and I think a bit of parenting context as well, because that family of origin stuff is always going to come out and rear its ugly head in that.
How we were parented
How
ourselves.
were we parented, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is different for everyone again. And being kind to yourself and knowing it's okay to ask questions even if you think, I should know this. There's no silly questions. We get them constantly on the parenting line. Is this normal? Is this what my baby should be doing?
Am I going to turn into my mother, Jen?
Yeah.
Probably. Because I often think about it as in our brain, imagine your brain is like a ski slope. And we don't ski in Australia, but imagine if you have that when you're going down an icy ski slope, your skis are going to fall into the path that's already sort of deeply sort of compacted snow. It's a lot harder to go cross country and off terrain to carve a new path. So when it comes to parenting, the way we were parenting is actually quite relevant, and it's good to reflect on that a little bit because that's where our skis are going to fall into place, and we're just going to go down that hill, and it's going to be the most efficient way that we know how, but it might not actually be what we want to do because we might reflect and go, actually, I don't want to be like my mother. I don't want to be like my father. I want to do something different. But it takes energy to do that, and it takes time to learn. So if we go back to that parenting competence, I have to talk about a little OT framework here.
Here she comes.
Occupational therapist. So in OT, we have a framework called doing, being, and becoming. And I was thinking about this in the car on the way here, and I think it's so relevant for parenthood. And it's the idea that these three things are really interconnected. And, you know, sometimes we think we are like how we have a baby and we're going to become that parent. But actually, we've got to go through the doing and the being before we can be at the becoming stage. So the doing is the everyday actions, learning through our baby, feedback in the moment, closeness, connection, just trying things. It might not be the right thing, but we're doing the actions of everyday life
Practice.
in this new family that we're in. The being is more about the self-reflection, the starting to establish the role, and then the becoming is the transformational and the growth stage. So I just think that's a lovely framework to chime in here.
It's beautiful.
And it does relate really well to, you know, learning theory and such of that actually sometimes we just have to do and practice in order to develop skills that instinctually they may not come.
Yeah.
We have to actually practice.
Yeah.
Something else I think about here as well is that we ask kids to learn things all the time. Every day I think about my 4.5-year-old. He's learning something new. And sometimes he gets really frustrated and sometimes it's hard for him. As adults, we don't always learn new things every day. We might have been in the same career for a decade. It might have been a while since we've been in tertiary education. You know, we might change jobs, but generally we're not doing novelty new things all the time that really challenge our brains. Yet we become a parent and suddenly we've got a whole lot of new learning to do. And I think that's interesting to reflect on as well as why the stage can be tricky because we forget that straight away instantaneous success might not come. It might actually take a little time. Just like our 4.5-year-old learning to ride a bike without training wheels.
Yeah.
That it's not going to come straight away.
It's hard to build those new neural pathways and it's really tiring and you're tired already.
Yes, exactly.
So it's just compacting everything.
But the great thing about the brain is that we can.
We
have a magnificent human brain with neuroplasticity. We can continue learning all through our life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just hard.
It's just hard.
It really is.
It's hard when you're tired.
And being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
I think we expect perfection. We see something that's put out by society and it's meant to be all, you know, happy, smiley parents with this beautiful baby who sleeps peacefully and has perfect skin and, you know, but really babies go through all hormonal changes when they're born and their skin can they can break out and you're exhausted and you've just given birth and you haven't had any sleep and you've been up all night with a baby that's used to being awake all night in utero and you're like, what is going on? And then you're expected to be this perfect parent on top of that. But there is no such thing as a perfect parent. It's just doing what you need to do at the time, learning and building that confidence in knowing your baby. And that's the one thing that we do like to say to parents is that they are the expert in their baby, even if they don't feel like it. You are the expert. You spend 24 hours a day with this little person. And if you think something is not quite right or you feel like something could be better, then we believe you and we listen and say, yeah, absolutely, tell us more.
And I also wonder when stress increases as well, Jen, we're more likely, regardless of if we're a new parent or not, but particularly when we're a new parent, to fall into some of those thinking traps, you know, of black and white thinking, catastrophizing, all of, fortune telling, thinking about the future, really projecting. And I think it's also important to kind of try to catch yourself. And if you're a partner, if you see your partner falling into those, because parenthood is not black or white.
No.
And if we're in a state where we are thinking everything's got to be wonderful and rose-coloured and love heart eyes, and then that's probably not a balanced perspective in those early days.
You
that
set up
actually,
for failure.
Yeah, actually accepting and being mindful of and being able to acknowledge that these early days are going to be maybe some beautiful moments where you do have those love heart eyes, but also some really, really stressful moments where you might think you've ruined your life.
That's a normal
and
thought.
that is actually a normal thought, and that it's not that having those thoughts is quite balanced and an important perspective to have.
Yeah, but it's hard because you're tired.
Yes.
And so having insight into the way that you're actually thinking, that's hard.
Yes, absolutely. And most of us don't have insight into our own behaviour at the best of times.
No, it takes a lot of hard work to get that. So,
it does.
Yeah. We'll talk to parents on the parenting line a lot in terms of babies and being with your baby. And what feedback that we get is that it's really uncomfortable sometimes to just be with if you've got an unsettled baby, they're crying, and we say, oh, just, it's good enough to be with them. And that's a really uncomfortable place for some people, because going back to parenting from context, if you've never had someone just be with you and you felt safe in those emotions of distress or discomfort, how can you do that for your child? And it's really normal to be triggered in that moment and to not know what to do and to feel like you do need to rescue. And that's when we get to going back to values in parenting and what kind of parent you want to be, and looking at the context from where you're parenting. How were you parented, and what do you want to do moving forward? So we always say that you parent according to your own truth. And so knowing that before baby's born, having a think about that is a really good idea if you've got the capacity on top of everything else.
I agree. And I think asking yourself some questions like, what does it mean to me to be a good mum or to be a good parent? What does a good mum look like to me? And trying to answer that in an honest way, not in an Instagram visualization way of everyone colour coordinated, matching Christmas pajamas or something like that. But what does it mean to be a good mother? What would that actually look like? What sort of parent do you want to be? And then that can then help you through parenthood, because when it comes to making a parenting decision as your baby grows, we're not going looking for the right or the wrong answer. We're not looking for the perfect solution. We're actually just looking to make a decision that's in a step towards the person and the parent that we want to be, that aligns with our values.
Yeah. And that's the best way that you can put it.
And that's
taking a step.
Taking a step in the direction of that good mother or that parent we want to be.
Good enough.
Good enough, yeah.
Yeah.
What does good enough parenting mean? Winnicott.
It's whatever's good enough for you. Good enough is good enough.
Yeah.
We don't strive for perfection because it's impossible to be the perfect parent.
Yeah. I've recently found out that within that context of that good enough mother or the good enough parent, there was also an element of Winnicott talking about responsiveness. So in the beginning, parents, we want them to be actually quite good. We want them to be very responsive to their babies because their babies have no skills. They can't kind of do anything. So they cry, and we are naturally kind of drawn to try to problem solve around what that cry means. Maybe it's a nappy, maybe it's too cold, maybe it's too hot, maybe it's just overwhelmed and need a cuddle. But as our baby grows and develops some more skills, it's important for us to just be good enough so that they also learn to live in an imperfect world. So we actually can become a little less responsive, so that we're doing a little bit less, so that they're doing a little bit more within the context of developmentally appropriateness.
Yes.
Obviously, we're talking about very young babies here. This is probably something that's more going on into the early years of life. But I think that's interesting. I feel like when we see the good enough parent represented in social media, it doesn't always talk about that other side that was being discussed in that theory.
Yeah. And the good enough parent and the responsiveness is good in the early days because it builds that trust.
Yeah.
So babies learn to trust their caregivers, and that is how you can then build on from that with that maybe being a little bit less responsive because babies feel safe
Yeah.
in the fact
They
that
know
they
that
know their
eventually-
caregiver will come.
Yeah. I think it's even if we can't solve the issue, you know, because sometimes we're all upset and there isn't any issue. The babies are the same. Sometimes they get overwhelmed and there's not really anything that we can do to fix that. But they know that we're going to try, and that's what responsiveness is about, is that you are going to try your best to respond to that baby and to connect and to attempt to meet their need, even if you can't.
Yeah.
And that's what children really need. They need to feel safe and secure, have that secure base from their caregivers. That starts in those early days.
It does. And it can be very triggering to be with a crying baby and to feel like you're not doing anything and you're not able to settle them. But being with them while they're unsettled is enough, even if it feels like it's not enough for you, because we always want to fix. But it's actually about being with. And then they know you're there. They're not alone in a cot crying. You're with them. They're in your arms. Having said that, it's okay if you're feeling really overwhelmed to put them down in a safe place, take a step away, have a drink of water, come back, and then go again.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we have got Angela, I think, coming in and talking a little bit more about crying on another episode. So we'll go into this in a bit more detail.
Yeah, crying is a very interesting topic. It's it's a hard one.
Yeah. It's hard to tolerate.
It is. Yes, I can't. You know, even at the shops, I'm like looking around, babies crying. How can I fix? How can I fix? And you have to tell yourself, actually, it's not about fixing.
Yeah, it's about being with. So, Jen, we actually have talked quite a bit about that postpartum period, but something else that's just sort of come into my mind is that process when you're pregnant. And people often refer to it as nesting, I suppose. But a term that we sometimes describe is gestating the baby in mind. So visualising what sort of visual image comes to mind as you are growing your baby inside of you. And I think that's quite an interesting concept to talk about and to reflect on as well, because some people struggle with that, particularly, I suppose, if there's been pregnancy loss or if there's been other challenges with fertility. It can be hard to actually visualise your baby. Again, that's protective psychologically. You might not be able to visualise your baby because there's maybe an element of fear or worry or anxiety that until you actually see them, they're not really there.
Yeah, very true. I think also sometimes for second-time mums, it's very hard for them to visualise that baby because they already have a child. And so visualising that baby can sometimes there's a bit of grief there, looking at their firstborn and saying, oh, hang on a second, there's going to be another baby here soon who's going to take me away.
Baby.
Yeah, yeah. And knowing that that's actually okay, that those feelings are all very normal, but we don't speak about a lot of these feelings, the feelings of not being able to picture that baby or even not being able to bear picturing that baby in case something goes wrong. And that's it's a huge thing.
And I suppose if people are struggling with that, reaching out for help is a good idea. Talking to someone about it, even talking to friends, opening up that conversation, because sometimes just talking to other people, it might even normalise that, oh, I didn't really feel like I was going to have this baby until just before I had the baby.
Yeah.
To help kind of understand and normalise and process some of that. But are there other things that people can do? What about just talking to their baby?
Yep. And I think getting their partner involved as well, everyone having a big conversation with this baby makes it a little bit more real. Setting up the room, like you were talking about nesting.
Practical things.
That's right. And, you know, putting the car seat in the car and having that ready to go makes it a lot more real. Sometimes that can be overwhelming as well, though. So if you're not ready, don't push yourself. Little baby steps towards it. And even if it's just every day saying, hello, baby, and, you know, talking about names and all those things that are the fun parts.
Yeah. Or what if your baby's really active in utero? You might then put an attribute to that. So you might say, oh, they're going to be a little soccer player just like dad or just like mom. So I think sometimes trying to make those links so that you can start to visualise who this little person will be.
Yeah.
I think, thinking about names is good. Some people don't like to name their baby until they see them because they want to make sure, and that makes sense, but maybe starting to make lists of different names that you and your partner like. I think most people actually would do that.
Yeah, yeah.
But it can be hard to agree.
It can. And particularly, I think, in this day and age, a lot of people know the sex of their baby before the baby's born. And if you don't, that can also be really hard then as well, like being able to picture a person who you don't know anything really about this person other than that you're making them, you're growing them. So, yeah, being kind to yourself and just knowing that all those things are really normal and really appropriate.
If there are people out there that are in Western Australia that want to talk more about this, how can they reach us?
Please give us a call at the parenting line on 9368 9368. You'll be able to speak to someone about any of these things and have your thoughts heard and validated, and we can point you in the right direction. So please feel free to reach out. The good thing is that we've got some other episodes coming up which will touch on these topics a little bit as well.
We can pull them apart a little bit more.
We can. What's our next episode? Raising mentally healthy children, supporting babies' social and emotional development.
That's a great one.
That is a great one. So I'm looking forward to that.
Great. Thanks, Jen.
See you then.
Thanks for listening to Parenting with Ngala. The topics covered in our podcast are general in nature, and the information might not suit everyone. If you're in Western Australia and would like to chat about a specific challenge, you can talk directly to the Ngala Parenting Line by calling 9368 9368. For all other links and resources, check out the Ngala website and the show notes below. Thank you again and see you next time.